लाइव कर दिया ये सब गड़बड़ दिख रहा है उसमें।
वो हो जाएगा सर, बाद में एडिट कर दूंगा, जब वो पब्लिश के आता है ना कट कर दूंगा।
होता नहीं सर?
हाँ,
वाह,
होता है।
ग्रेट एडिशन। सेशन का नाम बताएंगे तुम जाने? जैसे तैसे रहने दो। तो वो सेम का कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होता ना? कैमरा लाना पड़ता है व्यू करने के लिए इजी
यहाँ पे फोकस चाहिए सर, तब वो ज़्यादा क्लियर है।
बोला बोला
घेऊन सरांना बोललो तर त्या मी राणीला आपल्याकडून कुणी जर चालू करा हे करून तुम्ही लॉग इन
मग आता कोणाला यांचं करायचं नाही
ऑनलाईन यांचं नाही करायचं, हे असतीलच इथे असतील पण चिकित्सा लेक्चर आपण घेणार हे चालू करायचं
जूम चालू एक काम इधर जा मेल में जा
लवकर
इनबॉक्स में जा इसको खोल इसको ओपन कर तुम्ही शेअर की लिंक है बाहर से
रोल होस्ट बोलून टाकतो ना मी
पॉइंटर संभाल लिया ना आपने सर का डील कर लिया
कारण भाई
तिला मला चालू तर करणे की
सगळं 2 मिनिट सर एवढं ऑलरेडी आपण 1 घंटा लेट चाललो
ई बुक बनवलेलं आहे ई बुक दिलेलं आहे
हेलो हाँ मैम आपको होस्ट ट्रांसफर कर दिया, आप ज्वाइन करिए।
ये निकालना पड़ेगा ना?
नहीं हाँ हमारे एक फैकल्टी वो ज्वाइन कर रहा है।
अरे बेटा कितना करा लगेगा
हाँ प्लीज आप ज्वाइन
कितने
कीजिए।
को कितना करा लगेगा फोटो कैसे रहेगी
ये स्पिन
सर
ड्रॉप है।
बंदा
Yes, my dear students, the next speaker is going to give his virtual presentation, and he is Mr. Kshitij Kumar, and he is currently working as Vice
Hello.
President.
हाँ मैम आप
Health Systems
दीदी
at
आप एक
Philips, Gurgaon, Haryana.
the host will let you soon
He
ऐसा
has
बोल
got
रहे
26 years of experience,
प्लीज
and
प्लीज
he is currently working at Philips, and he worked in India business as head of
हाँ 1 मिनट आप 1 मिनट उनको मत दीजिए, आप सिर्फ इधर होस्ट ट्रांसफर कीजिए। चेतन पूरी करके इधर राजू सर फैकल्टी हो गए उनको दे दीजिए। 1 मिनट जस्ट लेट मी चेक पार्टिसिपेंट्स। हाँ होस्ट में आपने नहीं आपने चेंज ट्रांसफर नहीं किया शायद से। श्वेता किसको किया मैम आपने?
Let us all get settled. We just enjoy the virtual presentation of
With
Mr.
DMIHER.
Kshitij Kumar,
Okay, fine,
Vice
fine,
President.
Okay.
And his topic for the presentation is role of PPP in transforming public healthcare systems. Mr. Kshitij Kumar.
रिक्वेस्ट करो 20 मिनट
That's it. Sure.
He is come online. I can see it.
Here we cannot ignore the human element. Yes.
Can you speak, sir? Can you speak?
Yeah, hi.
Am I audible?
Now, good. Yes.
There seems to be an echo coming from.
It's now in this finance. I don't require a mic then. A very good afternoon to you, sir. And here at FEAT, all students are very much eagerly waiting for you to have a virtual presentation on the role of PPP.
No, you can talk here. This is a camera. Here.
Yes. Today, Mr. Shitish Kumar, the Vice President, Health
Should I
System.
start?
It's okay. Let it start.
Okay, sir, I request you to start the program. Is my voice audible, sir?
Go inside.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Good. So maybe let me try to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
YouTube is going parallel and Zoom also going parallel. Message based on. Yes,
Let me know if you can see my screen, please.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, I see a thumbs up, so it looks like the screen is visible on the other side. So let me start then. So first and foremost, very warm and welcome to the whole land of Delhi. So I'm dialing in from Delhi right now, and this is a virtual world. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the role of PPP transforming public healthcare system in India, and let's get this going. What I would like to do is spend first 30 minutes talking about it, and then open up for any question answer that might be there in the group. So I'm going to start with first, what is the spectrum of healthcare in India that we see it? What is PPP? In them, another 20-30% goes in kind of non-medical equipments like lifts and beds and all those things that come. Now, is there a possibility to use the infrastructure that the government can provide under PPP, while the private player brings in the rest of the capital to really equip it and make it a very efficient healthcare delivery model? Now, really think about it, and there is a marriage that is possible, because on the left-hand side on the top, what you see is what the public healthcare system has and what the private players need. So they have a patient flow which is coming with a low affordability. They have a physical infrastructure, a prime property in a civil hospital right in the heart of the city. We get a lot of patients coming in. And if you look at what do they need on the green box, is what the private players can make it happen, which is about efficiency and about delivery of healthcare services far more efficiently out there. So clearly, it is possible that both the private players and the public healthcare system can benefit from each other. And if I were to take a step back and look at typically the challenge that happens on the healthcare in India on the public healthcare side is, if I look at the pyramid for healthcare and talk about tertiary care, secondary care, and the primary care, the tertiary care touches only 10% of the population. So people needing, let's say, a cardiac intervention, a stenting procedure, or intervention cardiology, or a dialysis is only touching 10% of the population. But that 10% of the population and the tertiary care takes away almost 60% of the healthcare budget of any state. Now if that is the allocation of the budget that is happening at the top, which is touching 10% of the population and touching 60% of the budget, the states are left with very little option to spend money on the primary care, the vaccination programs, the primary programs for the mother and child safety, and their well-being. That is what becomes a very limited constraint resource of them. So if PPPs work well, especially on the tertiary care side, then it is possible to release the budget that governments, the state governments today spend in order to take higher amount of money on the tertiary care side to the primary care side and strengthen the preventive side of healthcare and touching far more people out there. So clearly it's a possibility. Some of the states have already started doing that, and I think in my viewpoint, there is a possibility, and there is a clear possibility to make it happen if you get it right. And I'm going to quickly now move into what does it take to make PPPs happen? What are the 5 key different elements that are required to make PPPs happen in this contract? Because it looks very simple that the government has something which the private players need. Why is it that PPPs are not scalable? PPPs need these 5 elements to be in place to make it a scalable model. Let me start with those 5 elements. What are those 5 elements? 5 elements are, it is about bidder selection. Now, why is it important? Is because healthcare is a very sensitive subject. You need to have players who can provide those kind of services. You need to have the financial viability, because for it to be sustainable for both the government and the private player, because the private player is going to bring in his investments, we need to have the financial viability to make it sure that the contract lasts its term. Then, of course, we'll talk about the contract. How do you make sure that the contract is balanced? We'll talk about quality, which is a very, very important point in healthcare. It is not about another pothole on the road that you can probably live with. In healthcare, quality becomes a very, very important subject. And finally, we talk about the fifth element, which is about technology. Let me go one by one into each one of them and talk a little bit more about it. First and foremost is the bidder selection. Now, this is probably the most important criteria by which the bidder selection needs to happen. We need to look at what is the technical qualification. Does that person or that entity or the organization have adequate experience to run similar size of facilities? Do they have the financial wherewithal? Do they have the bank lines and the credibility to be able to get to the scale and the size that PPPs need to be there? And then, of course, the weightage has to be given to the technical experience of bidders, because it's possible that you have the financial capability, but the technical know-how is not there, which in case of healthcare, it is very difficult to get it. So, and there have been occasions, I've quoted a few examples out here. There are local medical colleges which have floated out PPPs to run their radiology centers. Some of the diagnostic centers who have been getting reference from those private, those medical colleges, the private centers, have put in the bid and have made sure that the bids do not go through, because their referral would have got disrupted to their private diagnostic centers. So there have been occasions where the bidder has not been selected wisely, and they have put a frivolous kind of a bid, a non-serious bid, and has got delayed. The whole medical college kind of suffering that they are not able to get the right facilities, because the local diagnostic center put in something which they did not want to kind of put and implement it out there. Of course, there have been large statewide tenders that have got delayed too because of financial limitation of the bidder as well. So if you look at bidder selection, is probably one of the most important points, that looking at the size of the project, the qualification that is required both from a technical and financial side has to be kept into mind before you put up the bid out there and ask for people to bid for the tender. The second and probably very important element for the private player is the financial viability. Now, why is this important is because PPP, sometimes the state governments even say, oh, you should do it under your CSR budget out there, which is not a sustainable model. At least for the private enterprise, which is bringing in the expertise and trying to run it as a business, that cannot be a scalable or sustainable model. So what does the financial viability mean? Financial viability means that the certainty and timing of cash flows has to be there. There has to be transparent pricing. Typically, the PPPs are signed for 8 to 10 years to even longer period. There has to be a transparent pricing mechanism. It cannot be that somebody else comes as a medical superintendent of the institution and he or she decides that, oh, I'm not happy with this pricing, you can do that. So those are the things that are very, very important for the financial viability of the project and for scaling up PPPs. Let me move quickly to the third one, the contract itself. The contract typically that gets signed under PPP should be a very balanced one. Now, this probably is the most tricky of all the 5 elements. Why? Because typically the government is used to purchasing an equipment or a hard infrastructure, not so much used to buying services on a contractual basis over a longer period of time. So if you ask any government body to put up a specification for either putting up a road, they can do that, or either buying a medical equipment, they'll say that blah 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 XYZ, these are the things that they need to purchase. However, if you ask the government agencies to put up a contract to buy services from the private side, the challenge comes in: how do you define services? How do you define the quality of services? That And that becomes a very difficult one because that's the system is not used to buying services, they are used to buying products directly from the suppliers. The second element on the contract is about acceptability to the bank. A lot of these projects would require a bank funding to the private player. The contracts cannot have terms that this asset belongs to the government because it is being built up in the government premises. It has to be clearly lien marked to the bank so that if there is a default from a private body, the banks have a right to step in and take possession of that asset or that possession of that company to run that contract. And that's why it's important that the contract, when it is framed up, it is not framed up as a purchase contract on the government side, nor is it construed as something which will, if the private player builds into the hospital or in the services out there, it belongs to the government. No, it belongs to the bank because there typically be lien mark on those. And there has to be a clear roles and responsibility on the medical legal liability terms, because in a hospital, it's very easy to say like, who's responsible for medical legal liability? Fortunately, the code of law is very clear on this. The first respondent in case of a medical legal liability is the hospital itself. Then comes the referring doctor or the treating physician. Then comes any private body. And the law is very clear saying that wherever, even if you contract out your services, the liability is not passed on to the contractor. The first respondent in the code of law still happens to be the hospital. But that has to be clearly carved out in the contract itself. One of the things that private players have to greatly watch out is the rent-seeking opportunities that will be put up in the contract. For example, inspection to be done by the local medical superintendent. Inspection to be done by this person or this radiology department or this cardiology department out there or head of cardiology, etc. Now these also become kind of opportunities to say, I'm not happy with your services. These kind of things should be not taken into consideration. What should be acceptable is a third party. So, for example, National Accreditation Board of Hospitals. If they look at the services being provided and find it okay to give an NABH certificate, that should be fine enough. You don't really require a local one, doctor or a head of the department to be saying yes or no to the services or the quality of services. And this is a very important one, as I said, of all the 5 elements. This is the one element which comes or becomes a very sticky point for discussion once the contract between the private player and the government is not running out well. The terms are not very clear. Terms of risk allocations is not very clear. Who's supposed to be doing this? What happens in case of medical legal liability? Who will bring in the patient? What happens if something happens to the patient? So those are the things that are very, very clearly have to be laid down in the contract. And as I said earlier, buying a product is easier for the government, but buying a services always becomes a challenge. The fourth one is really about the quality. Now, we all want accessible, affordable healthcare, but we also want accessible, affordable, quality health. Now, what do you mean by that? What we mean by that is that just by providing in a tier 2 city, the quality of healthcare cannot go down. Which should not be, even by the way, not be governed by a long, complicated reporting format, saying that this is a 30-page format that you have to submit every month. I've been in PPP for the last 12 years, so I can tell you that there are still some government PPP tenders that come with long 30-page reports to be filed every month. And what are you measuring? Average time for the patient to come in, to go out, what is the average length of stay, what are the scanning time in case you're looking at scanning time, what is the reporting time. Now those complicated reporting formats do not help anyone. Local inspection rights clearly not. How do you ensure then the quality of services? The best way to ensure the quality of services is to definitely have an NABH, National Accreditation Board, some quality measures to be written out there. Fortunately, NABH rates have a financial incentives to the quality players because CGHS, the central government and scheme rates, have a 15% higher rates if you are an NABH accredited institute versus a non-NABH accredited institute. So there is a financial incentive for the players as well to get into a better quality healthcare to be provided out there. And as I said, like quality in case of healthcare becomes a very important parameter that we should not ignore. I'm going to move to the last one, which is about how do you choose an appropriate technology. Again, a very important one. So, for example, like if I was to look at a contract and say like, I want to outsource my radiology department. I want to get radiology services in a medical college. If I look at on the y-axis, I can choose a low technology, which let's say for a CT scan, let's say I put it only for a 16 slice as a comment. Now that will become a viable, but because the technology keeps on evolving over a period of time, what happens is if you are given the contract out for 8 to 10 years, before you realize after 5 years, the 16 slice is outdated. Nobody is actually using it. On the other end of the spectrum, if you look at on the y-axis, you use a technology which is very high. That could be a very expensive technology to start with, but it might serve a clinical purpose, but it is most likely going to become a financially unviable proposition for the private player. So what kind of a technology do you choose? You end up choosing somewhere in the middle, which is an optimal one for both the private player and also meets the clinical needs of the hospital so that you can get into a win-win situation. And that was my last slide on PPPs. How do you make it viable? I'm going to open it up for any questions that might be there.
No questions from you. You are asking questions. Ask.
So that was quite. Are they all visible to you, sir?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
This is YouTube and that is the YouTube. You unmute there.
We have to unmute from there itself.
Go. No. Down. Yeah, you talk.
Is my voice audible, sir? Voice audible. Okay, I will go there.
Yeah.
Here it is. Sir, now.
Now I hear with a lot of
Sir, do you want me to go there and talk? Is my voice audible right now? It is going like this.
No, ठीक है.
Now, is it okay, sir?
I cannot able to hear how you can hear. Sir.
Here you are. Yes, I guess now you are able to listen to my voice.
How he is reacting? If he's not listening, how he is reacting?
Maybe if you want to call up on my phone and then tell me the question, I can probably do that.
There is no question as of now.
No question.
Thank you, Datta.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation.
Hey, where is the switch off? No? मैसेज चैट में मैसेज दे दो ए चैट नॉट सर चैट में मैसेज दे दो थैंक यू वेरी मच डन डन जो भी है आप दे जो
Already going on, sir.
नहीं देन कुछ करो ना ओके सर Where is CC? I'm already delayed. Not we are not like medical. Do it on time.
Yes, now, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students, I'm going to request Dr. Om Prakash Kandis to present his banking speech.
Somebody can give the mic. Somebody can give you.
Yes, Dr. Om Prakash Kandis, sir, he is the director, Special IT Nagpur, and he did his MTech from IIT Mumbai and a PhD in 2004 from DMIHER. And he has published various papers both in national and international journals. And he has also published 6 books, which include books on compiler design, theory of computation, data structures, and algorithms in the US and India. He is a member of IECSI and ACM. Ladies and gentlemen, I request Dr. Om Prakash Kandis to present his banking speech.
No, that is the captain. The
Shall I connect my laptop?
Sir, if it is there on your mail, you can open it here.
Here I will have to search out this sent it.
शशिकांत कहाँ है? Whatever coordination you are doing. Not कोई है ना? नहीं तुम लोग तो सो रहा है क्या? No, that's okay. You would have said somebody.
Yeah, I'm audible? Yes, sir. Okay, so good evening, everybody. So I'm here to share with you my views on what is the importance of interdisciplinary education, interdisciplinary approach in technical education, based on my little experience of 34 years, which I spent as an academician as well as administrator. So what is the context? All of you knows that we are living in an era of convergence of technologies. The level of automation is changing the entire employment landscape because of the technological advancements. Today's engineers are required to deal with complex engineering problems. So in this context, what is the importance of interdisciplinary approach towards technical education? I will be explaining. So let me first brief you about, give some examples of convergence of technologies, like long-term, short-term wireless communication technology, cloud computing, data analytics, information security. They are all used in healthcare for telemedicine, telehealth, remote patient monitoring, because gone are the days of discrete monitoring. Now we shifted towards continuous patient monitoring. Industrial Internet of Things, all of you must have heard about Industry 4.0. We started talking about 5.0. We also started talking about metaverse, which is going to give us a total immersive experience. It uses a technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, brain-computer interaction, blockchain, and so on. Automation. Every business process is getting automated. If I compare the level of automation when I was doing my engineering and the level of automation today, there is big difference. Almost everything is going to get automated. So you will have a question that you can ask me. If everything is going to get automated, what will happen to our environment? I will answer that question also. This machine learning is a driver for more sophisticated automation. All of us have started witnessing this. Even creative activities have started becoming automated. Generation of art, writing papers is also getting automated. You must have heard that OpenAI has introduced DALL-E, a deep learning model that can generate digital images from natural language descriptions. ChatGPT we are talking about. And as I said, engineers are required to deal with complex engineering problems or in general the complex problems. And the complex problems are characterized by these things. Number one, it involves one or more activities of designing, planning, investigation, improvement of components or materials, or processes or systems, R&D, commercialization. It requires to deal with conflicting technical and engineering issues. It requires fulfilling the needs of the diverse group of stakeholders. It does not fit into the standards and the code requires using new standards and codes or engineering practices. And used to have no obvious solutions, no single or correct solutions, no multiple solutions. They are required to be compared or evaluated on how well they satisfy the competing requirements of the data. Just one example. Design a Marathi speech recognition system. This is a problem. This is a complex problem because it involves investigating signal processing related complex issues, designing data set for Marathi speech samples, doing data analytics. This poses following challenges. First one is the system should be speaker independent. It is required that Marathi speech recognition system should work satisfactorily irrespective of sex, age group. But the fact of the matter is that the dialect and the accent changes every 15 to 20 kilometers. And if I consider Marathi as a language, I have to consider at least a state like Maharashtra, which is the second biggest state of this country. So these are conflicting requirements. Diverse groups are interested in this. Physically challenged people, because if I integrate this system with wheelchair, we can help physically challenged persons. They don't need basically the help of the constant caregivers. Government is interested in using this for improving panchayat functioning, healthcare, etc. So, diverse group of stakeholders are interested, and it requires going beyond the use of standardized features that we use for recognizing English speech, because you know there is a big difference between the features of the languages like Marathi and English. So defining new standards, and that is why it fits into the category of complex problem. Another example is all of you know that we have already entered into an era of 5G. Establishing a 5G network is a complex engineering problem because it involves designing, manufacturing of new mobile devices, transmission equipment, setting up of denser cellular network. This poses not only technical challenges but social as well as economical challenges. Economic challenges are setting up of denser cellular network or infrastructure will not only be costly but requires addressing issues of space availability in heavily populated areas. Social challenges, it requires addressing an issue of keeping the radiations within the safe limits. So these are conflicting requirements. Diverse groups of people or stakeholders are interested in it. In rural setup, the people are interested in last mile connectivity. Heavily populated area people are interested in improved performance. Then service providers, transmission equipment makers, they are having their own commercial interests. industries interested in deployment of Industry 4.0 and mission critical IoT projects. And it requires software-defined wireless standards. So these are the examples of basically the complex engineering. So in this context, what should be the qualities of the next generation technocrats and entrepreneurs? Number one, they should succeed through change. So change is the only constant in our life. And we define change as nothing but basically the difference in the current state and the anticipated futures. So the next generation technocrats and entrepreneurs need to succeed through change. Of course, they will have to handle the resistance also, because it is very difficult to pull the people out of their comfort zone. There may be social, economic, other reasons also. So you have to overcome. They should be able to grasp the innovations rather than simply contributing to enhancing productivity, because innovation involves application of new knowledge to new and different tasks, leading to new enterprises, new products, services, and new jobs. They need to take systems approach. This is very important, because we cannot work in isolation. We need to always take a systems approach. Because of product and services, they will be designing, going to be a part of the complex system. So systems approach is very, very much required. When I was teaching a course at BTech level, I was telling that you need to take systems approach, because the system always works in an environment, and environment plays very important role in deciding the design parameters. I used to give them example like all this automobiles nowadays. Now we are moving towards electric mobility, but that time that MPFI was new, multi-point fuel injection system. If you want to design that microprocessor chip, and if you want to use them in Indian vehicles, it should be designed as a military graded chip, because in summers the temperature, ambient temperature goes to 46, 47 degrees. Whereas when the same is required to be used in the vehicles in some cold country, we need different design parameters. So you need to take a systems approach, that is very much required, and deals with complex systems. So these are the requirements, or these are the qualities that the next generation technocrats and entrepreneurs should have. So what is the need of the hour in this context? In this context, our higher education should focus on developing right skills. And the skills which are required to be developed are: number one, critical thinking, creativity, application, analysis and synthesis, and collaborative. I already told you that we are in an era of convergence of technologies. So we need basically to work in teams, we need to cooperate. So collaborative learning is it. Understanding of diverse knowledge and skills, and making connections between these diverse knowledge and skills. These are the requirements. So how to take care of these things? So for this, for development of these skills, we need to bring in interdisciplinary approach, and especially technical education. This involves students taking courses from disciplines that traditionally would not be considered under an engineering program that they are pursuing. As an example, electronic engineering students studying anatomy, physiology, biology, and similar subjects to develop a fairly thorough understanding which is required to engineer medical equipment. And with the information from the areas outside the basic engineering, the engineers will be able to look at engineering project, or look at the engineering project under many different lenses, and think more critically about how to design, what those design means for specific people or the environment. And this is required by dealing with the complex engineering problems. All of you must have heard that Government of India has already accepted this new national education policy. We call it as NEP 2020, which is expected to bring in much needed reforms in an Indian education system. And the important provision of MEP is providing the required flexibility and bringing in multidisciplinarity in our education system. Of course, these are not the only provisions because it has got two parts. One is focusing on school education, other is focusing on higher education. So this has got a context of provisions for higher education. There are other provisions also, but the main focus is on basically providing flexibility and bringing in multidisciplinarity. So it focuses on multidisciplinary approach. It emphasizes on social science humanities to help understand societal needs in a better manner and producing new generation for workforce. So keeping all these things in mind, how we can go for bringing in interdisciplinary approach and take care of producing the required workforce, which is required to deal with the problems of. So it begins with basically curriculum and teaching. So crux of everything is curriculum. So institutions should design and implement a flexible integrated curriculum breaking all artificially created boundaries between science, technology, commerce, social studies. And that's what NEP is expecting. Because especially in our setup, we have watertight compartments. A mechanical engineer has to look after only mechanical things or the things from his domain. Electrical engineer is supposed to look after the things from his domain. But as I already told you, we are in an era of convergence of technologies, and therefore we have to do away with this approach, and we need to go for basically having a flexible integrated curriculum. And for this, the curriculum developers need to do in-depth analysis to examine what needs to be integrated. This is very important. Otherwise, if you ask the curriculum developers to frame an integrated curriculum, they will simply do add and drop of the courses. That is not going to serve the purpose. We need to do in-depth analysis. What science component we should have, what humanities component we should have, in-depth analysis. Because I myself attended various curriculum development workshops at many places. And what I saw, that 4 teachers sitting across the table fighting for their courses, saying that without studying my course, a student cannot become a complete engineer. Gone are the days of those things. We are talking about a paradigm shift in education system. Shift from input-based to what we call as outcome-based education. And the crux of OB is designing and implementing a proper curriculum. And OB suggests that instead of using a forward design approach, you need to use a backward design approach. So you need to first decide what knowledge and skills you want to basically develop in the students, which we call as outcomes, and then you work backward. Using those outcomes, you decide what courses you want to teach, what will be the methodology that you will be using for assessment of those courses, and what pedagogy you will be using. So it's a backward design process. So curriculum design needs to be given a lot of importance. If the curriculum is properly designed and implemented, you have done the job. So that is what my third bullet is suggesting, that we need to follow backward design. But my observation is that when we ask the people to implement OB, they just basically talk about us. They draft only the outcomes, nothing other than that. So outcomes are required basically because, see, when we say it is a paradigm shift from input-based to outcome-based, that doesn't mean that we are reinventing the wheel. Because you may ask a question, when we did our engineering, there was nothing, no concept of outcome-based education. So whether our education system has produced bad engineers? No. But see, the engineering education itself has gone through transformation. We were almost on expansion spree, especially post-liberalization. We permitted private participation in engineering, especially technical education domain. And all of you knows that quality and quantity are inversely proportional. So with the volume going up, quality issues started cropping up. And to deal with those issues, we need basically this. So this OB is making our education system more accountable. It's not what we were doing was wrong, but it makes now the system more accountable. Because I used to say in a lighter mode, probably teaching is the only profession in which when you don't provide services to your customer, customer is to be happy. आज class नहीं लूँगा. Customer happy, students are happy. This doesn't happen in any other profession. Customer sits on your head. So it is ensuring accountability in our system. Because what it is saying that you first decide what skills and knowledge you want to basically develop in the students that you are. And keeping that in mind, you work backward for everything. So curriculum design is a backward designer. My course will have a place in the curriculum if it contributes in attainment of some of those outcomes. Otherwise, it won't have a place in the curriculum. So this is what is required to be done. The project work should focus on various application domains like social, economics, healthcare, climate, with proper contextual setting, because critical thinking needs to be a contextualized logical thinking. Because as a part of engineering curriculum, there is to be a capstone project, but what is the outcome of it? I will come to the research also. The outcome of our research is publication. Without publication, we don't award a PhD degree. So with the rate at which our country is producing publications, by now we should have been technology leader. But where we stand, majority of publications are trash publications, nothing else. So we need to rethink on all these things. And in the morning itself, when we were having some discussion, I said, we have forgotten that engineering is required to be practiced. So that aspect is required to be taken care of. Some of the courses in the curriculum should be kept open-ended. So normally in our curriculum, we have contents fixed for every course. To cope up with the changing needs, why not do a few courses which can be decided every semester, taking into account what is the need of the hour, and especially roping in practitioners for content delivery of those courses. That will give good understanding of what is going on outside, in which domain the employments are available, students will be better prepared for them. And this is not an hearsay. I implemented it at my place. We are having 2 courses at our place whose contents can be changed every semester. And we are roping in practitioners to deal with this. Coming to research, we should focus on applied research. Because most of the technical problems are of applied nature. So we should focus on applied research. There should be some well-defined deliverables of it. Of course, it needs infrastructure. So always people keep on giving this excuse that we don't have infrastructure. Agreed. Not every institution is having or equipped with the required infrastructure. But we are having good infrastructure which is required for the research. Only thing is, we are not collaborating. We are not having good networking. During pandemic setup, suffered like anything because of connectivity issues. Digital divide, we call it. Because we were compelled to switch to online teaching, online learning, but connectivity was an issue. But we never thought of solution using networking of an institution. Because with expansion of the engineering education, there are thousands of engineering institutions spread across this country. What was the problem in having networking on? So if a student located in some X village has got a nearby engineering college, he would have gone there, would have used the bandwidth available there. So we are not working on this. We need to work on it. Encouraging working on live industry problems to ensure industry sponsored funding. Because research doesn't come free of cost, and we are in free market economy, and there is no free lunch in free market economy. Everything comes with a cost. So if we need funding, always we keep on looking at AICT, UGC, SCRP and all those things government funding. Now government also don't have funding. We don't look at industry or private players. But industry won't give you funding like you have just submitted a proposal, somebody is evaluating. You have to convince the industry that there will be return on their investment. And that will work if you approach industry. Identify live industry problem and start working on that. You will be in a position to attract funding, good funding for your research. Making product development as an outcome of PhD work. What is wrong in that? We always stress on publication. And this publication business has gone to that level that now even an MTech student, अगर तू पेपर नहीं पब्लिश करेगा तेरा डिसर्टेशन नहीं होगा. UG student publish a paper. And I saw one YouTube video by ex-ISC director, deputy director or director. He has made it clear that academic publishing is a big business. So why not to change the outcomes rather than stressing on publications only, product development, maybe technology transfer or something of that sort. And this will be in line with the self-reliance our Honorable Prime Minister has already envisioned to make India as Atmanirbhar Bharat. So it will be in line with that. And providing, this is the one which I am proposing, providing industry research internship for first year full-time PhD scholars. There's nothing wrong. If I have a full-time PhD scholar, let him spend 1 year in an industry. He or she will understand what are the live problems in an industry, will develop good networking with an industry, will fetch good funding with industry. I think you will need that. Was my last slide probably. So that's the way we can address these problems. So I presented before you, based on my little experience, how we can bring in interdisciplinary approach in our curriculum to address the problems that are faced and to basically develop the required knowledge and skills which are required for the next generation. Thank you very much. So if you are having any questions, then I will try my level best to answer.
No questions?
You are not sitting in a class, huh?
Yes.
Why you people are hesitant to ask questions? Okay, thank you.
नहीं visitors can be sorry but running it.
Yes, sir, we have another speaker.
Let him present it first.
I request
Now I request Dr. Amay Anjani sir. Come please.
Along with me.
Along with me, sir. Dr. Conclave, sir, you very well said that the change is the spirit of technology which needs blending of various streams of knowledge in an informative way to achieve the best output for the best betterment of the society. And you truly said that the interdisciplinary approach to education would surely train our students with a diverse skills.
Sir, one more thanking letter. Without this letter, I know that.
Kindly accept the reminders and the token of respect.
The YCC students and faculty, because there are many calls from your parents and your teachers. Thank you for coming, and you can leave so that your bus reaches by 10 o'clock. You can go. And tomorrow, please come. Right? If you are not coming, then your marks will be cutting. And our students will be. So something you gain looks like, right? Feedback forms you can give. Feedback forms you can collect somebody who is there.
Feedback madam is out there, and I insist all the students to collect the feedback
Who is there?
forms. Kindly do not forget to pick up and submit them on time.
Thank you, thank you. There are 20 calls for me.
Because of the time constraint, we had to rush, and we are extremely sorry in guest speakers right here. Now, my dear students and respected audience, I'm extremely privileged to invite a guest speaker, Mr. Kalpesh Bhatt, as our next speaker. And he is Senior General Manager, Molecular Imaging Zone India, Siemens Healthcare. He is having over 25 years of experience in nuclear medicine as a user, research and development and business development. And worked for many well-known hospitals across India, as well as worked in various healthcare equipment industries. My dear students, respected faculty members, and revered guests, and I invite Mr. Kalpesh Bhatt to present his wonderful speech.
Good evening, and thank you very much. I'm sure I'm audible, right, to all of you, because many of my slide is just picture, so you have to hear me. Okay, so thank you very much. It's a really good session when we are talking about the interdiscipline and interdisciplines in the technology, because we can't really work in silos. I know Wardha, you are the engineer student, right? Perfect. So again, the day will come when we can say you are not only engineer, you are the medical engineer, not the biomedical, but the medical engineer, and that's what the vision is. So, taking forward to Dr. Prakash sir, what he talked about, I will give you the real example and just explain you where this transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary is held. So, the therapeutics is a new word, maybe. And it's an emerging field in medical. And what are the technology or technology challenges that we are getting right now? So, few disclaimer, of course. Many of the pictures, as I said, taken it from the, I would say open sources. And this is the more my, I would say, the opinion, personal opinion on that. So we all know it's nothing the big science that or nothing secret which I'm talking about. The medical technology is talking about the artificial intelligence. Is in data-driven healthcare. It's also saying about the telemedicine, and that's a very important in India because it is spread across everywhere, and we cannot reach into the tertiary city or village. So therefore, telemedicine or remote patient monitoring plays a bigger role. Precision medicine and personalized medicine. Now these are the new elements, or I would say, how the precision medicine and personalized medicine, where the technologists or you engineering can play a bigger role over here. So I'll take you through the little bit journey on that why I'm coming onto the theranostic, because before understanding theranostic, we have to understand some of the basic journey. If any disease happens, there are the four stages. You can say the prevention, diagnosis, therapy, monitoring, and follow-up. Some clinical cases, it ends there only follow. Like take example of fracture. Once you had a fracture, fine, is done. Now everything is perfect. But think about the cancer. Once it follow, it goes back into the cycle, and it's keep on going on until unless we really get out of those medical situations. So I will take example of cancer today to explain you on that, because that is in a longer journey. There are the two different pillars which we all know. One is a diagnosis, another is therapy. And we always believe somehow that diagnosis is one thing, therapy is another thing, is never merged. Now, diagnosis we know the laboratory, right? We go for the hemoglobin test, or WBC test, or RBC test. These all are the laboratory tests. There is a radiology, and NL stands for nuclear medicine, and then are the treatment. Let's first take you through the NL, because I'm sure the laboratory you know, radiology you know. How many of you know the NL, nuclear medicine? Okay, so my subject is the right choice, I think so. So let's see about the NM, nuclear medicine. So nuclear medicine is in a technology where we are dealing with two different modalities, like FEAT and CT, or SPECT and CT. This is a combination of two different independent technology, which we talk about the CT is alone and nuclear medicine alone, or MRI is alone. This is the mix of that. Why it is important? Because this platform gives the functional image. Now, what's a functional image and anatomical? Let me give you a very quick example. If we have a bone, we can understand, yeah, by accident, it is the bone. If something is happening in the bone, it's not been fractured, but is not functioning properly, or maybe metastasis inside, or cancer inside, how do you know? Until unless we understand the function. So the nuclear medicine will give the functional images. Take example of thyroid, what we have in there. It's in the, if you look at the ultrasound or X-ray or CT, it will show you that yes, thyroid is there. But whether it's working low, working normal, or working very high, in all three conditions, your behavior, patient behavior will be different. So that will get from the functional images. And it's an early detection. And the cancer is all about the early detection, right? So this is the element of the molecular imaging. Now in this, I'll just show you the one example. What exactly happens is, now where are the elements? Why I'm talking to you? Because everywhere technologies plays a role. In nuclear medicine, radioactive material, which is look like a water only. If you see this can be radioactive material. What we are doing is, we are taking with certain molecules in the hospital. So there are some technologists who can combine, and that's in a chemistry or biochemistry work, right? You can imagine what type of background they will have. After leveling those, you inject to the patient. It goes inside the patient, and the patient need to wait for a period. Depends upon what type of organs you are looking. After the waiting, you take patient under the equipment. Now this is the whole cycle, and after putting this patient under the equipment, we see the image. Now you see over here, injected certain pharmaceuticals to the patient, which goes into the lung only, and we are seeing the lung. And now we are from the lung, we are trying to see whether pulmonary embolism is there or not, whether infection is there or not, tuberculosis is there or not. Now, when we are designing this equipment, now if someone of you have seen these CT images of lung, and if you can just compare that image with this, the huge difference. CT images is very, very sharp, very, very high resolution, and here nothing. How technology plays a role over here? How you can make it better? How you can do the better reconstruction? And to do that, you need to know what is a nuclear medicine. Because if you do not know, then how we will do the image reconstruction over here? So here you are seeing the entire lung, but we are moving towards the very, very specific cancer imaging. Let me take you another example. Doctor is looking toward the screen. What's he saying? One dot. Let me make you as a bigger one. What you are seeing over here? Just one dot. Yeah. Now this is the PET imaging. What is trying to see in this image is when the patient had a cancer. Take example of the prostate cancer. How it has been spread, whether it has been spread or not. Doctor want to understand that. And if you give certain injection to the patient, which goes directly to the tumor, prostate cancer tumor, and if you can see like this, that means patient had a cancer, patient is having a cancer. But the question is, where, which area of the colon? We don't know until unless we see this image. Now you look into that, where the technology plays a role. You do the reconstruction of the CT images, you do the reconstruction of the PET images, you fuse it out. Again, this is the physiology, right? Physiology means it's movable things. Inside it will move. How do we know that? The patient is not moved. It should be accurate exactly on that location. So for that, again, the question is interdisciplinary education and knowledge is a must required, right? You must know certain basic elements that yes, what exactly the doctor is trying to understand from these images. Let me make you this situation a little bit more complex. This is a CT image on your left hand side, and your right hand side is a PET image. Here also we are trying to see where is the prostate cancer has been spread. We don't know because CT will not show you because CT is an anatomical image. But PET is a functional image. Now, small area, very small cell, very few cells is now having a cancer. We want to, what is that? Goal is to identify the early, very quick. That means even if it is spread in few cells in 1 mm, we should identify that hot area which is on right hand side, which is dark white color. We are trying to identify that. Now for that, we have to have image reconstruction in such a way that you can achieve this best possible image with the lowest radiation. Right? So if you remember the slide which I showed you before, we inject radiation to the patient, right? So the constraint, in your language, when you put it the constraint, what is the constraint is radiation should be lower, imaging time should be faster because cancer patient may not lie down for the long time. Within these two constraints, how you can get the best image? Think about that, right? And that's constraint, that radiation, what's the impact of radiation? You need to know. It's an engineer, right? But still we have to have knowledge of the medical science. When we fuse this image, we know exactly the location. Yes, cancer is here. Now this image goes to the doctor for the operation or some other treatment, and we can get rid of this notorious disease. Now, that's the reason what we are all talking about. There's a whole day symposium. What we are doing about is enough. How we should know other part. We should not work on the silos, as we sir said that we should be work. At least we don't want to be expert because we have other stigma in our brain. we want to be expert in everywhere, which is not correct. We are not all are the all-rounder. We are not Hardik, right? We should know at least certain idea about that, what exactly to work about that. Now, this is what about the nuclear medicine image. That means the two elements is added, right? One is a cancer-specific imaging and the higher precision. Higher, we can see the precise imaging on that. So that's one thing we can think about. To understand or to develop certain algorithms, develop certain technologies, you must have certain different information or knowledge. Now let's move a little bit on therapy also. Of course, in cancer there are three therapies. One is surgery, another is medical oncology, which we can call about the chemotherapy, and third is radiation oncology. We will not go about the surgical because it's very simple right now. Let's concise on certain area. Let's think about the cancer chemotherapy. Just for your understanding, chemotherapy works in this way. It is a toxic material. It goes into the body. It works. It affects everywhere. It affects normal cell as well as the cancer cell, and it dies over there, and it makes either die or it will stop growing, and therefore you get the benefits. But at the same time, as I said, it's a toxic. It goes and harmful to the normal cell also. So that's one chemotherapy, right? Another option of treatment is radiation. So radiation will come from the outside. It will hit to this tumor in the brain, suppose. But if you see this green line, that means it's a radiation. It might impact to the area which is normal also. There are certain critical organs. If you think about this brain, the patient is having a tumor which is red, but we are giving a radiation to the other area also, which is a normal brain. So it might change the behavior of this patient. How critically we work on that, that lower radiation should go focus on that area. Right? So that's one area. Another way of working is put the radiation inside the patient. It's called the brachytherapy. I put the wire wherever the canal is there, tube is there in organ. We put this wire and goes inside and you get irritation. So these are the therapy. So just want to, why I'm saying that, because one side we are talking about imaging, another side we are talking about the therapy. This all therapies will have their own side effects. Fatigue, hair losses, weakness, infection, because at the end of the day we are toxic, we are injecting on that patient. So we will have that. But what's the crux of that? That one side is therapeutic, another is diagnostic. If we see these two disciplines in one, is called therapeutic. Yeah? So even in the medical, which is a very, very small area, imaging and therapy, that also cannot go as an entity, cannot work in silos. There is a stream which is called theranostic. Of course, it's not new. Since many years, decades are there. But nowadays, it's taking a big role. So, therefore, engineering and medical definitely has to be very much fusion. Okay. Now, as I already said, theranostic is basically combination. Now, there are many diagnoses and therapies are there, and there can be a theranostic. But today, I just want to talk about the nuclear medicine and radiation, right? Because as we know, the tumor, like in this red, is a tumor which is specific. So nowadays, there are agents who identify the exact tumor. Like take example of prostate cancer. Now, prostate cancer will have a tumor-specific receptors which will take by the certain molecule, which is called target molecules. Now, these are the normal pharmacy, right? It will link with certain element. It's called as a radioisotope. Now, this radioisotope, if we can label with certain isotope, I just take example of lutetium, which emits the lots of radiation and it goes beyond the patient body, and therefore we can imagine. We can use this isotope for the imaging purpose. But if you just think about, if I change this isotope with any other isotope, and that isotope will emit only alpha or beta rays, which is very, very strong, but cannot travel long. So what is the benefits of that? It will go to the tumor specific, it will fix there only, it will give a high radiation and it will kill. Right? So the idea about that is now we have a field where we can inject radioactive material for the imaging as well as we can use it for the therapeutic also. So now then question comes so many. Okay, if I want to inject, how much dose I will give? And that's a dosimetry. Who will do that? How much calculation? Is all based on the algorithms. How much iteration you do, what the best image you can get it, how much you can quantify, and then calculate, and you can give this dose to the doctor that you inject this much dose. Create a software, and then you can get dose. This field is there right now. Okay, is there. But the challenge is, whenever the student comes into the industries, they may not have exposure of those things. They may not have exposure of that. Okay, they want to deal with such algorithms or such constraint, the lower radiation, high radiation, the faster time. Within that constraint, we need to work. So, question is how fast we can work it out, how we can do. Today, it's in a neuroendocrine tumor or prostate cancer or breast cancer. There are many such type of molecules are available. In India, we are using those molecules for the treatment planning, and we can use that. But unfortunately, all those molecules we are importing, so it's a costly cost. The software we do not have right now. So we are working on the experience. We have very limited few softwares. We can really calculate that how many doses we require, what exactly is required. So it's very elementary time. And this whole software is being majority is coming from the out of country. Why can't we do it with our own way? Can we use the AI in that? Yeah. Can we use the data-driven algorithms on that? So these all are the question. So advantage of theranostics is very useful because that's what will bring into the personalized medicine, and that's what all about we are talking about. Every person, every patient from the same geographical area, same age, if having the same type of disease like prostate cancer or breast cancer, the same chemotherapy will not work with both. Which molecule will work, which what, is all depend upon the personalized medicine. So what we can do is with this, first you can inject, you can see the image, you can calculate, yes, this medicine goes over there. And then you just change that link. Instead of lower radiation, you put the higher radiation, and now you target, give more radiation to that. All those definitely require again technology. Right drug administration, the right time, that also matters. Any stage we cannot inject, and it's not for that every cancer that can support by the theranostic. There are best subject we have to select, best patient we have to select which can fit for this one. It can help in the patient which is most beneficially on that treatment and in speeding the time. Today, many of times it happens, the patient taking the chemotherapy, it's given for 4-5 cycles, and then we still we see there's no good result. So, and then we stop it. Why we should do that? If we have, I'm not saying that it will entirely change this any modality, everything will work. Radiation therapy, chemotherapy, everything will work. But in given clinical condition, this can be work very nice because immediately after the imaging, we can understand if the response is there or not. This is a beautiful image which was received as a best image in 2018. If you see, it's a little bit difficult for you, but let me just tell you that there are the 4 patients. So this is the 1 patient, this second, third, fourth. There are the 2 images, set of 2 images. So the first patient, this first set is basically when the patient had a disease. So you can see the red spot when they had a disease. And after therapy, if you see the next by that, there's no disease in that. It's very clear. So we can do very personalized medicine, but for that we need really good technology with us. You can see the images, right? Wherever there is a normal and abnormal, you might see these are the very dark, but you should understand the language of medical. This is the kidneys, and it will be there. So which is a normal distribution, which is an abnormal distribution on that, and how we can target. That's the trick things. So you might need the AI based on that. You might need better segmentation where you can segment the normal organs and you can segment out the abnormal organs, which is having abnormal distribution of these pharmaceuticals. But it has own challenge again, right? And that's what we need to address that. Target specific. How many different target can I develop? Once it is injectable to the patient, whether it remain really intact or get dissociated. Because it get dissociated within the patient body, that is all problem. So we need that area also to be worked on that. Local availability of current agent. As I said, in India, we don't have majority of what we are getting out of the country. It ends up in the costing, logistics issue, and the high resolution image modality. As I said, as I told you, we are trying to identify the smaller area, very early stage of the cancer, which modality, how we can do, we can identify the early. But yes, this all are the possible. Everything, high skilled manpower, this is another things, and that's what we are talking about. If it comes under the education, I'm sure within a few years we will not have that challenge. So diagnostic is an emerging field, and we need to work to get this overcome. This is just example of one of the interdisciplinaries, but there are the many more of that things. So here I'm ending. Any question? You have to answer.
Mr. Kalvesh, sir, that was such a wonderful, insightful presentation you have given. The terms you have used were totally new to us, even for the faculty members as well. And we are also thrilled to see those slides, and so wonderfully you have narrated the disease management journey, which was totally new for us. And one more thing, you just mentioned this nuclear medicine, and which gives the functional imaging of the organs of the body. And why it is so important to have the reconstruction of the whole body structure. It is necessary to locate where exactly the malfunction is going on. So if the doctor fails to find out the malfunctioning or the tumors located inside your body, and how can you go to administer any treatment? So my dear students, just to feel the importance of engineering in the field of medicine, you can definitely add miraculously a change to this medical science. Thank you so much, Kalvesh. We want to felicitate Kalvesh.
Yeah, we are here on like this only.
No, I request. Our dear sir, Dr. Meghe Reddy sir, to felicitate Mr. Kalvesh by presenting the mobile phone.
This is a tradition.
And the Godland of the heart is the symbol of the heart. Of course, the sapling is the symbol of the love.
Certificate also. Certificate by their need. So thank you very much. So see you tomorrow before 9. Right? So tomorrow lunch is there for you, all of you.